Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talk, where we dissect last week's message and talk about it and think about it and try to just get you thinking more about and talking about God's Word as well, what we've been in. And as we look forward, this is just a great way to connect what we're thinking about and doing with your life. So, thinking back to Sunday, we talked about Joshua chapter 2. And this is the story of Rahab. Rahab is a prostitute. She is in Canaan, the land that Joshua is leading the Israelites into occupy. She is part of a people that believe in a different God, and the wickedness has reached its full measure. I found it fascinating. I found a lot of stuff fascinating, but one of the things I found fascinating was in Joshua chapter 1, God tells Joshua, be strong and courageous as the leader. Yeah, 3 times he repeats it, and then at the end of the chapter, the people repeat it back, just like he said, be strong and courageous. The very next goes from Joshua, this ready to be the next leader, grew up in Israel, was very faithful. Next chapter, somebody from Canaan, totally unfaithful, a prostitute. And yet, she was willing to recognize and accept this, the God of Israel. And so she took great strength and courage in order to do that, to hide the spies, to be on their side, to put her loyalty with them. And I think there's a lot of points to this passage, but one of the points is the passage that God's call goes out. And if anybody's willing, he will do what it takes to bring them in. And in this case, he sent the spies to her doorstep, and she was saved through that rescue effort that God made. The spies didn't even know they were a part of it. You know, that's pretty interesting to ponder. How often are we part of a rescue mission of God that we don't even know, but he's placed us where we are to be who we are in order to invite somebody into something beautiful, right? I don't know. We talked a little bit throughout the week about this story. What are some of the things that came out for you guys?
Well, okay, so remind me real quick, Jeff, what were the criteria by which these 2 spies were selected?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because
we aren't told?
We aren't told. Okay,
yeah.
So that's fine. That's great. It maybe makes no difference. Because as I hear you set that up and give that description, these spies are possibly the worst Israelites because they broke all the rules, right? They were entertained by a lady who's like so far from kosher, right? and yet they don't necessarily have like total faith. Like we have the faithful one in the story is the outsider, and the insider people of God are the faithless ones who are like, hey, we got to feel this out a little bit. We're not sure where to go. Like they have not, like the courage that they're all supposed to have was not contagious. It didn't spread. And yet the person who's the real person of faith, though it's not this massive, overwhelming faith, is the outsider and with a really bad reputation to boot. And yet that's the person who's our model of faith in all this. The spies just are kind of, I picture them as kind of bumbling along. They're like, hey, let's go in there. Oh yeah, look, there's all these people who need some information.
I love that you're using your imagination. I'd be a little careful because, as we said, at one point I tried to say that I don't think they were there for the benefits of a prostitute.
I agree with you. They're definitely not.
Right.
That they're, and you were really clear to say that they were there because it's an inn, it's a place they go, but they're not like, it's almost by accident it seems that they end up having that, not by accident because we know God's orchestrating it, right? God's doing the work and putting them in the right, but it's not necessarily their expertise as spies or their great faith that gets them there. It's the hand of God working despite these people being a little bit like,
or the fact that they ended up at this person's house rather than on the other side of the city. Well, there was a tavern over there. We could have done the same thing. We just happened to land over here, of all the gin joints in all the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like there's like this great Yelp for, and they're like, okay, which one has the best drinks? We'll go there. Where's the best place to get some intel in all of Jericho, right? They just,
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's so many tangents that we could go on, but the idea that, what I'm seeing is God's hand was behind and around and throughout this whole story, even in spite of the maybe spies not knowing it, right?
Yeah.
And Rahab was the one that was, I want your God.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I think it's really easy for me to look at her, and although we don't have a ton of information about her, right? To go, really, God, her?
Yeah.
Right? It'd be very easy to kind of go, she doesn't fit the mold here. She doesn't fit the bill. Like, why her? And yet, God saw something of faith. And, and it definitely makes me think of Jesus' parable of the mustard seed, right? And that God could see in her just a little seed of faith and then brought her in. And now it was up to Israel to figure out, how do we incorporate this individual into this new people of God? And, the lineage of Abraham, though kind of doesn't fit the mold, right? And they had to move forward through the wilderness and through the conquest of the land, and taming the land with now this individual who.
Well, and as we were talking a little bit before, one of us noted that this is one story of God rescuing a person willing from the people that he was coming to judge because their sin had reached its full measure. Everybody else was preparing to fight against this Yahweh, right? But she was like, I'm in. How many more cities are there people like this that we aren't told in the Bible? Because the Bible is very selective about what it includes in God's plan. But this story is here to show, hey, there was somebody willing. I wonder how many more were like, I want in,
And what I was going to say too is like, what's important for me in this whole story is remembering where we're at. Because if you just look at this and just look at Joshua, you would think, oh, this is just another, almost like after school brawl. This is Joshua, he's just fighting this guy, and then they go fight, and then they go fight, and they fight. And it's just about the fight. But taking a step back, remembering, okay, all the way back to a couple weeks ago where we took that look at Abraham, and he looks out at the stars and he sees God's promise, and God has this larger plan, and this story is kind of the working out of that plan of I have a promise to fulfill for you, and in some ways that needs to happen on the ground, and this needs to get worked out in some way, and it's happening through this way of Joshua going in and conquering these areas as well too. But in part of that larger story, I think what is amazing is that there is this woman who does raise her hand and say, God, I do want to be saved as part of your larger rescue plan. And it's not just this snowball of fight, dominate, whatever. There's actually these moments where people are recognized as needing a savior, and they respond. And I think you even just said it just now. I wonder how many other times that did happen. And yet through all of that, God also said, you will be for me a royal priesthood and a holy nation. So you will, kind of conform to this law that I've given you as well too. And for them to eventually then kind of accept that and adopt that, even as they go through this land as well too, because God also was very clear to say, if they don't accept, actually, you're going to deal with them in a very different way too. So that's where it does become very black and white, and yet at the same time, there's this kind of pause in this wheel that's kind of coming through the land and kind of stomping, but yet it's not just a stomping through for no reason. It's actually to also redeem in the midst of that as well too. And for me, it's very important to realize where we're at in the story.
And that's always true, no matter what story we're in. Like God's plan is to bless all people, right? That's what he told Abraham, and many people know that Genesis 1 through 11 is kind of the first part, and Genesis 12 through the end, or is the next part, and the next part we're part of. And there's different acts and everything, and of course it culminates in Jesus, and we're beyond Jesus. But the goal is still Beyond Jesus is a bad way to say it. Does that what you're laughing about?
My brain immediately jumped to beyond me, and I'm like,
we
wait a minute.
come
that's
after Jesus.
That's not what you meant, I'm sure.
After Jesus, and we're part of that beautiful after that we get to be part of the already not yet. But he said, I'll bless all people. And Jesus came and he said, I am the fulfillment of that promise.
Yeah.
And so we are part still of that blessing all people. Right? All people will be blessed. And Rahab is a part of that. She was willing to accept it and she wanted to be a part of it, and God blessed her, And so his blessing.
Yeah. Well, and ideally, because I think as people oh man, it is so nice when things are just black and white, and when we can just look at a place like Jericho and go, oh man, that place is 100% wicked, there's nothing redeemable there, let's just torch it to the ground.
Yeah.
And then we have Rahab going, as a model, actually, she's not typical example of don't judge a book by its cover, right? Like she's someone, and God even brought out with her other people, and so there's this pocket of what he, a pocket of response, and I really appreciate that you framed it that way. It's a response to faith, it's a response to the call to, say yes to God, and but man, in a more, I think, modern context, we might kind of have a bit of that Woolerton effect where we think places like that and go, right, let's just torch it and move on.
Yeah.
And but God sees something so much more than we usually see.
Yeah, and how often we do apply that to other people. Like when we see their decisions, we write them off quickly.
Or, and people and communities and neighborhoods and encampments and whatever, right? Political ideologies and all sorts of, name your category that we use to separate people. And when it's not us, we tend to think, I'm on the good side, I'm all white, and then that's all, whatever. And, but God says, no, hold on, there's an exception to almost everything.
Yeah, there's so much to challenge us in these verses as we... keep talking about it, because it raises a bunch of questions. But I think what we really need to stop and remember or realize is that this shows us a God who loves his people, and he's willing to do what it takes. And this is a story of him willing to do what it takes. He sent these spies in to save this one person from a place that we would say, oh, it's wicked, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And then he sends Jesus, right? Like, Jesus to be destroyed by why doesn't he just wipe us out? We're all defective. We're all, we're all so depraved. And yet he's like, if anybody has faith as small as a mustard seed, like you said, I'm coming for you.
Well, and also his people are sometimes in unlikely places and amongst unlikely people, right? Like,
what do you mean?
What I mean is, I think God saw Rahab as one of his people.
Yeah.
And if the Israelites, right, just kind of walked on by and said, "Let's burn it down," they would have, right? They would have missed her.
I think we noticed that in Mark, one spot where the disciples were kind of like, "They're not part of us. We should destroy." And Jesus is like, "It's not about us versus them. It's about my people." And then in a couple chapters, there's this beautiful story. I always reference it or think about it when we get into, are you on my side? Or are you on God's side or their side or on whatever? Joshua comes up to this angel.
Yeah.
He's like, are you on our side or their side? He's like, I'm not on either side.
Yeah.
I'm God. I'm about the people I love, right? And it's such a beautiful image. Well, we could keep talking for a long time on this. There's a lot of things we were even just before talking about and just being challenged by this. So we hope that you are thinking about, talking about, pondering this amazing God that we serve, who loves people that we might ignore. And so how does that challenge us to think about people too?
And that some of these scripture passages are like a giant piece of meat. They don't, like, it's not like a Slurpee that down goes easy and you just move on with your life. It's actually something you need to chew on and see different aspects of where God is actually doing an amazing work. It's not an easy swallow it down and move on.
Which is so beautiful about God, right? Like that He's so big, and if we don't understand Him, that's okay with Him. You know, there's a mystery to Him, and we need to recognize that. Looking forward, we have. I think I'm talking about this weekend, am I?
Yeah.
This weekend coming up is a big day on Sunday. We get to come together and worship together as we normally do at 10 o'clock. Right after that, we're going to come into this room. That's why we're here, because we wanted to remind you that this is the room that you can come to right after Sunday morning to have soup together with our church family. And then right after that, at 12:30, we're going to have our annual general meeting. We refer to it as AGM in the sanctuary again, and we will hear a couple testimonies, maybe some more testimonies. We will welcome some people into membership, and then we will look forward to the budget and just some of the things that we hope that God will do, and some of the things that we are like, God, what are you going to do? We're excited to find out and partner with you. So that's this Sunday. Can you tell us about some things coming up in youth?
Well, we've got our citywide youth event on Tuesday, which is at Emmanuel at 6:45 to 8:45, and grades 6 to 12, and it's going to be youth from all around the west side getting together for a night. And so we've done, I think this will be like our fourth maybe that we've done of these, and they've always just been special nights because it's just great to come together and realize, you know what, like kind of like we could drive by the other church and go, yep, that's, I don't want to say Jericho because, you know, they're doing great things, right? There's a lot more than just one holy person there. But we can just kind of like sort of assume that we know what it's all about. I think that's what I mean, right? But like actually let's get together, our youth groups together, and realize, no, actually we're all worshiping the same God, and we're kind of like our youth nights kind of have a similar feel, and we just love having fun together. And so that's just what we want to do. We want to really be about the fact that the body of believers is so much bigger than just Lakeview and Emmanuel and Potter's House and you know all the other little churches. It's really one thing.
And I hear that there's a really special guest speaker that night.
Well, no, that's funny because I heard it's the other way around. They kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel. I think we're on to the third choice, but don't let that deter you. It'll be great.
Yeah, Chris, you get the honor of speaking. That's awesome.
It is an honor to speak. Absolutely, I really am looking forward to it. But
good.
Yeah.
And there was something else that the youth kind of are initiating.
Well, that's exactly, that's coming up the end of February, on the 23rd, last Friday of February, however that's easier for you to remember, for grades 3 to 6, so kind of that upper elementary age. We want to bring people together in this building and, have a night of fun and connection, be a, biblical story, a thought in there. But really it's about kind of looking at, it's weird to say the next generation, but those who aren't quite youth group yet. And how do we, kind of pull some of those kids together, especially for those who are in grade 6, who next year we want to invite into youth ministry, that, if you come on Sunday morning regularly, you kind of know everybody. But if you don't, it can be that first few nights at youth can be really awkward. But to have some nights where we've kind of sort of gotten together and kind of get to know each other, build some connection, is beneficial for that transition phase. Plus, our youth are looking at it like, hey, we used to do these Friday night fun events and they were really fun. Can we do something similar to that? And we go, yep, let's do it. And so there's lots of reasons to do it. And I'm just looking forward to that on the 23rd, 6:30 to 8 p.m. here at the church, grades 3 to 6, and a night of connection and fun. Yeah, so bring friends, just come, just show up, and there'll be a little bit of a sign-in procedure for that, so we can keep track of who's here. But that'll take place on the Friday night.
There's a lot coming up, isn't there?
And speaking of fun Friday nights, a week after that Friday night, I just found out it's a Friday.
It is.
March 1st is a Friday night, and so the week after the kids thing, we're going to invite you to come and join the Warriors, the West Kelowna Warriors hockey team, and just have a fun celebration that night. It's actually called the Warriors Faith Night, where they actually highlight and celebrate the ministry of Don Richmond, who is the chaplain there. And so they really put out a call to a lot of the West Side churches to come and just hang out and enjoy and represent some of the churches of the West Side. And so that's March 1st at 7 p.m. We would like to get group tickets, and so we would like you to order through us for now before the 18th. Or including the 18th, so that we can get all the tickets together in one section, and then we're able to just kind of hang out as a church as well. But there's going to be a lot of other churches there as well too, so it's going to be a good night. And so you can have a look at this poster just to see the prices, but it's going to be a really fun time. And so mark your calendars for that fun Friday night.
Yeah, it will be fun. It's always been great in the past. Even if you're not like the hugest hockey fan, what do? We sit around together as a group. We chit chat, we ooh and ah, we realize who amongst us becomes an entirely different person in the sporting arena.
Yeah.
And it's just it's another great night of connection.
Yeah, it's really fun. So, well, there's a lot to think about and remember and put on your calendars. But don't forget. This Sunday is the AGM, and we really want you there. So come in the morning, worship with us, have lunch, and then come to the general meeting. And we look forward to seeing you there. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.